night of my life. A lot of background information. But the one weekend, my sister and I decided that we were going to go to my stepdad's, and her best friend was going to come also. I was around 13 at the time. Well, my stepdad and my mom had been broken up for about a few months, but my dad was okay with us going to our stepdad's because he had been with our mom for around 7 years and he's always been good to us. My stepdad's was 2 hours away. So fast forward, we get to his house, and my sister and her friend wanted to go to a party. Now, me being older now, I knew that they didn't want to bring me because they were around 16 and I was only 13, but I still tried to tag along. Well, they weren't really talking to me or anything, and I hadn't seen my mom in almost a year. So I told my stepdad that I wanted to go and see her, which was a super big deal, because she absolutely hated my stepdad, and she didn't want him around us. And by the way, she lived like 5 minutes from him. So if she found out that we went all the way up there to see him and not her, she would have flipped. So he drives me to my mom's house, like for part 2. Part 2 about the worst night of my life. So before I got to my mom's house, I called her. And I pretty much just told her that I was with my stepdad and I wanted to come see her. Like I said, she lived 5 minutes away. So as soon as we pull up, she walks outside. And she starts screaming at my stepdad. She's like, "Those are my kids. You're not allowed to see them, blah, blah, blah." Even though my dad had full custody and he could decide who we could and couldn't see. So after that, we walk in the house. She isn't saying anything. And this house is pretty much like a trap house. There was a knife holding the door shut. Not a kitchen knife, like an actual knife that you stab people with. She's like, "You can sit down, make yourself comfortable." And I didn't want to sit down because I saw needles everywhere and I just saw a rat crawl under the couch. So I was like, "No, I'm fine." And then she was like, "Sorry, not everybody can be rich like you." Which, just to make clear, I'm not rich. I just knew that she was doing drugs with her boyfriend in that house. After that, she pulls the knife that was holding the door shut out and points it right at me, like for part 3. Part 3 about the worst night of my life. So before she points the knife at me, she had been in the kitchen, right? So I went to go and sneak out the door. That's whenever she ran over, ripped the knife out of the door, and pointed it right at me. And she's like screaming a bunch of shit at me. And she's like, "Oh, what, are you going to tell your dad that I pointed a knife at you?" And I told her, "Yeah, like, what the fuck do you mean? Am I not going to tell him?" So at this point, she tries to take my phone. And I told her, "No, you're not taking my phone." And at this time, my sister's also texting me and yelling at me because she had told me that I should not go to my mom's house. Probably for that exact reason. A few minutes later, she hears her boyfriend pull up. I had never met her boyfriend. Like I said, I haven't seen her in probably almost a year. As soon as she hears him pull up, she looks at me and she says, "Go out the back door." She literally hurries up, takes me to the back door, and I have to run out the back door. I don't even know where I am. My sister and stepdad were waiting at the gas station across the street, so I ran over there really quickly. And then a few things happened after that. Let me know if you guys want a part 4. Part 4 about the worst night of my life. Just a little side note, I am in bed, so it's going to be a black screen, and you can probably hear my dog snoring. I'm just going to go from my point of view the rest of the time, because I texted my sister, but I think she's sleeping. So pretty much, I had to call my sister after my mom told her to go out the back door, and there was a sheets right across from where she was, but since she had to go out the back, she just saw like all woods and no gas station. So I got on the phone with her, she runs over to the gas station, and when we get back to my stepdad's house, we call our dad and let him know what happened. And the police actually got involved, and they had called my dad because my mom had called them and told him a bunch of stuff that just wasn't true, like saying that my stepdad was a pedophile and stuff, just like saying stuff that could actually ruin this man's life. And usually my stepdad would come pick us up and then drop us back off, but the police said that my dad had to come get us tomorrow morning, even though he had full custody and could decide who we could go with and stuff. So my dad came the next day and picked us up.
Cheer Scandal Part 1. So my understanding is that in the South, Texas in particular, where this excuse takes place, cheerleading is a big deal. A big deal. And this is kind of a foreign concept to me, because I'm from the Midwest, and before I went to high school, there were like 4 cheerleaders on the high school team, and they were not a part of the common crowd that you see like in movies. And by the time I got to high school, there was no cheer squad at all for the entire movie. I don't know if this was just my high school, but I don't remember seeing cheerleaders from other high schools come to football games. But anyway, moving on. This week's case really intrigued me for the fact that I'm completely oblivious to how serious cheerleading is. But for those of you who have had experience with how serious cheerleading can be in certain areas, how far do you think a mother would go to get their daughter a spot on the high school cheer squad? This week's case is short, should be about only 5 parts. All of them will be uploaded shortly. Cheer Scandal Part 2. The year is 1990. A A young girl, around 13 years old at the time, named Shayna Harper, had taken cheerleading at a gymnastics studio. Her mother, Wanda, had also provided private cheerleading lessons for Shayna because she wanted her to be successful at it. Another girl named Amber also attended the same gymnastics studio as Shayna, and they were both friends, by the way. So these two young ladies were wanting to try out for the 7th grade cheer squad, and I guess in order to do so, they had to campaign for the spots. This is more serious than I ever thought. Amber had an idea for her campaign, which was to pass out flyers with little peppermint candies on them to her classmates. Well, I guess Wanda, remember Shayna's mom, did not like this idea at all and wound up complaining to the school board and everyone else to try and have Amber disqualified. I mean, how are you going to come for a 13-year-old child like that? You as an adult should know better. Come on. But Amber's plan worked and she was chosen for the cheer squad. Shayna was not. Cheer scandal part 3. So next year, Wanda decides that she needs to get Shayna up her game before tryouts. So she starts to plan months ahead. She has a photo of Shayna printed on pencils and rulers for Shayna to pass out at school. I guess these items are not allowed because when Amber got to pass out those peppermint candies the year before, Wanda was like, just pass them out anyway. But other parents got wind of this and voted to give Shayna this is so ridiculous. But anyway, Mother gets the idea to meet up with her ex-husband's brother Terry. And when Wanda complained to Terry about Amber and Amber's mother, Terry made a joke that she should just have someone basically off them, you know? And Wanda's like, no, that's a great idea. Someone who will. Terry's completely convinced that Wanda is serious. So what does he do? He actually does the right thing. He goes to the sheriff's department. Cheer scandal part 4. So at first, cops don't believe Terry because it sounded so ridiculous that someone would want to off someone, including a child, over cheerleading. But Terry assured detectives that he was telling the truth. So they get Terry all wired up for a conversation with Wanda to see if this lady is actually serious. So during that conversation, Terry tells Wanda that finding someone who is willing to off a teenager would be difficult. Wanda's response to this was basically that she could punch Amber in the face and that she's a bitch. Little 13-year-old girl. Nice, Wanda. And let's not forget that Amber was just really trying to, cheer. And that Wanda had been friends with Verna, Amber's mother, for years. And Shayna and Amber, their daughters, were friends and had sleepovers together. Eventually, Wanda and Terry agree on a price of $2,500 to off. She decides to leave Amber alone, but hopes that she's too upset over her mother's death to try out. Cheer scandal part 5. This kind of reminds me of the movie Lemon. Someone was murdered over a freaking pair of overpriced yoga pants, and in this case, a woman wants to kill someone over a 13-year-old's cheerleading tryouts. And let's just say that Wanda truly believed that Shayna could make a career out of cheering, which there are people who definitely do. But you still can't cheer forever, right? Even if you're like a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. Like I said, I don't know much about this, but just wow. So Wanda tells Terry that she could never off someone herself, but she can definitely hire someone else to do it, no problem. Of course, Wanda's arrested. She is found guilty and sentenced to 15 years in prison, but Wanda appeals and is granted a new trial and winds up serving 6 months with 10 years probation, I believe. When Wanda was a teenager, her father wouldn't let her try out for cheer, so I guess she decided to live vicariously through Shayna. And the sad thing is that Shayna was bullied because of all of this, but at least nobody was hurt or killed. That's all I have for this case. Thanks for sticking with me.
Discover matches all the cash back you earn on your credit card at the end of your first year. It's amazing because Discover's accepted at 99% of places in the U.S. that take credit cards. Learn more at discover.com/yes. 2021 Discover Report. Limitations apply.
Come with me.
It's love for him. He my first love, but I don't want him. It's over. You think I'm lying?
Story time about my psychotic best friend. So we're gonna call this girl Gia. So a little background information. This all happened whenever I was in 9th grade. I saw Gia sitting at this lunch table alone, and I invited her to come sit with my friends and I. And after talking to her, I found out that she was a new student and she didn't have any friends. So her and I started hanging out, and we became really close. Like, she would come over my house 24/7. Well, my older sister was a grade above us, and she would act really weird around her. And by weird, I mean, like, she would always make fun of me in front of my sister, and weirdly enough, try to cause problems between us. My sister didn't really like her. She thought that she was weird, but because she was my friend, she was being super nice to her. Well, like a month later, she started trying to become best friends with my sister. Like, any conversation she would have, I would be like, oh, do you want to come over? She would be like, no, sorry, I'm hanging out with your sister today. And I would go home and I would be like, hey, are you hanging out with Jean today? My sister would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, from her
I literally want to cry. So if you didn't know, I have a sister, and her name's Ashley, and we both have boyfriends. And every night we both fall asleep on the phone with our boyfriends. So one day we're all hanging out and we're like just talking. And my sister's boyfriend looks at me and he's like, you need to stop going into your sister's room in the middle of the night. And I look at him and I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't have a reason to go into her room. Like, I don't go into her room, especially in the middle of the night. Then my boyfriend has the conversation and he's like, no. He's like, no, I just actually go into Kayla's room every night and stare at her. So me and my sister both look at each other and we're like, we don't go into each other's rooms, do we? And we agree, we do not. And they said this has been going on for months. So for months, somebody or something has been going into me and my sister's room for about 15 minutes every night and watching us sleep. But it only gets worse.
I can't be the only one. Who else knows people that have killed other people?
Finally, something that I can actually relate to. So my grandma, I know it comes from mom, so she calls my great grandma. So it's kind of a crazy story, but back in the 90s, my grandma was over at her house giving her a bath. She was elderly, so my grandma was kind of in charge of taking care of her. During the bath, my grandma brought up the past about how she was abused as a child by one of her stepdads, and her mom then basically admitted to knowing about the abuse, but blamed her for it instead of the stepdad, which sent my grandma into a rage. She ended up drowning my great-grandma, and then after she was dead, instead of calling the police, she cut up her body into 8 different pieces, put them in garbage cans, filled the cans with cement, and then put these garbage cans in different storage units all throughout my hometown where I grew up. When the police were investigating, she lied and said my great-grandma was in Hawaii with this wealthy man she met, and even faked letters from her. It's pretty crazy.
Story time! So yesterday my friends and I all went to the fair and there were 6 of us in total. And none of us wanted to have to worry about driving there and parking, so we just Ubered instead. So we left the fair around 11:15 and we walked to a nearby shopping center where the Uber picked us up about 10 minutes late. We ended up leaving at 11:30. We get in the Uber, the man says hello, and we head home the normal way. Everything's fine. And my parents don't like when I Uber, so they were tracking me on Life 360 from the moment I got in the car. After about 10 minutes in, I get a text from my mom, and it said, "Where are you?" I look up from my phone, and I realize I have no idea where we are, and Ubers know their directions and know how to take you home. We were 20. Here's a story time of how me and my sisters almost got kidnapped. So my mom and her boyfriend were just going to go out and have a night to themselves, and I was home watching my 2 little sisters. At the time, I was 13, my 2 little sisters were 9 and 6. So around 6 p.m.,